G. Bush, Mikey McNuggets coming at you guys live on the Bleacher Report app and on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube channel on a Monday post-mortem following a Browns butt-whooping to the hands of the Los Angeles Chargers. G, we entered the game with hopes that this could be the start of a playoff run for Cleveland. We ended the game knowing we were finito, dunzo machunzo, over and doubt, dead, whatever descriptive word you want to use. It was over, and I titled this stream, Everyone Deserves Part of the Blame Pie, some people more than others. But I don't know how you pinpoint one issue with the Browns currently because they have so many different issues going on. It's hard to pinpoint one and say that's the easy fix because there are so many things that have to be addressed this offseason.
That's the scary part about it. There's not one thing that you look at the Cleveland Browns and be like, hey, it's the quarterback. We changed that out, get another quarterback, ready to go. Or it's the play calling. We'll change play callers and we'll get somebody else and we'll run some other things. No. Well, hey, we'll get a superstar Nick Chubb back and he'll change things. He's coming back from injury. Maybe he'll give us a boost in the arm. None of that is the easy thing that we can just look at and say, that's what it is, and let's go ahead and fix it. And I think that's the scary part to most Browns fans. I think when most Browns fans think about it, it's a scary notion to think that we may have to go into an offseason where you have to have a quarterback. You still don't know what's going on with the play calling or if this is the right offense. And you're looking around and saying, we have older pieces and parts, and the quarterback play has been so bad, we really can't even evaluate whether or not we got number one targets, number two targets, who they are. And I just think that's the frustrating part about the season, McNuggets, when you look at the Browns overall.
You know, G,
all you could do is laugh.
No, well, I realized I spelled my name wrong on the title here.
Oh, yeah.
Completely botched,
Mickey.
Whatever.
Yes,
I was doing this real quick because we don't usually do these for Bleacher Report streams, so it was the last second thing. But regardless, people got – okay, I'm gonna go back to go forward. Just stick with me.
All right.
Deshaun Watson has divided this fan base in ways that I'm sure Baker Mayfield did before I got here. I just didn't see it personally. So in my two eyes, in my own personal experience, I haven't seen a player divide a fan base in any of the different stops that I've worked in as much as Deshaun Watson. And yesterday when Jameis was playing like absolute garbage, you saw people taking a victory lap for Deshaun Watson as if because Jameis played bad, that somehow vindicated Deshaun playing bad. To me, and listen, without these, I can't see. With my contacts or with these glasses, I have incredible eyesight, G. Bush. We're talking like X-Man level, see-through wall level eyesight. It's amazing what medical technology has done. To me, yesterday highlighted one thing. Bad quarterback play in whatever offensive system the Browns want to run will lead to horrific results. The first 6 weeks of the season with Deshaun Watson, we got poor quarterback play. They failed to score 20 points or throw for or total gain 300 yards in any of those games. Against Baltimore, for whatever reason, things clicked and the offense looked competent. And then against Los Angeles on Sunday, we went back to having bad quarterback play. It was Jameis. It wasn't Sean. And guess what? The offense went right back to looking like it had in the first 6 weeks of the season. So whether you're in the Deshaun Watson can be something one day camp, whether you're in the Deshaun Watson will never be something again camp, whether you're a Jameis Winston believer or a Jameis Winston doubter, to me yesterday was vindication that you need a really, really good quarterback to win at the highest levels in the NFL, and the Browns have trotted out 3 this year, and none of them meet that qualification. I don't think it's a victory lap for Watson. I don't think it's an indication that Jameis, just like after Baltimore, I thought it was kind of crazy to crown him the future long-term bridge guy. I'm not saying he can never be something more. That's the ups and downs of Jameis. But I think the big picture was, gee, this offense seems broken unless you have someone really, really, really good back there, or if you have Jimmy Donovan upstairs helping you out in ways that you can't count on week in and week out.
You know what? That's why I like doing these shows. I like two-man shows because your partner will bring up stuff that you never thought about, and you got a whole new thought process about what you were going to say. I was going to, go along with the same thing about, people taking the victory laps with Deshaun Watson. And now people are saying, see, I told you it wasn't just Deshaun Watson's fault, but all of them are quarterbacks, right? So you don't get we lose each and every time. It's not like, we get extra credit points for that. And I also say this too, it's mixed results when it comes to the play calling as well. Look at this. We had certain people who thought Kevin Stefanski should give up the play calling. He did. And now you see Ken Dorsey get the play calling, and it looked horrible too.
Yes.
There are people saying, I told you it wasn't Kevin Stefanski's play calling. Look what's happening with Dorsey. The offense looks exactly the same way when Kevin was calling the plays. Some of the same indecisiveness from Deshaun Watson that we saw with Jameis Winston. You still wasn't able to run the ball. You had Nick Chubb back. Pedestrian numbers. The offensive line, some of those woes came back to bite you a little bit. And so there is no diagnosis. There's nothing that we can truly point to that says, oh, let's just do this and we'll be on a better track or better. And funny, you mentioned about when, if this is something specific to this issue, right? No, we had those every time even when I go back to the Baker Mayfield situation, we always were left wanting more. We had some of the same things when it came to, man, I just, there's something missing. Why do we not have the explosiveness? What is, and even when we had explosive, even we had Odell and Jarvis and Nick Chubb and mainstream guys, we still were talking about some of the lack of explosive playmaking. So it's just like we're almost reliving it with different faces.
It's just disappointing because we enter this season with real expectations. And I'm going to ask you, as someone who's bled brown and orange for 40 plus years, considering the expectations, is this the most disappointing Brown season you can remember?
Yeah. It's unequivocal. I think 2021 is when the Browns made the playoffs. They came back the next year and they didn't do so well. We were on a cover of Sports Illustrated, and that one sucked. I can go back to 2008. We came off a 10-7 season. Derek Anderson throws for a bunch of yards. You had Jamal Lewis. Those years we thought we were coming back at something. They end up, I think, won 5 or 6 games or something. Everybody got fired after that season. This one is the most disappointing because, when we talked about it on UCSS and we went over all those polls and the roster, people talked about, and PFF had the Browns with one of the top linebacking cores, one of the top defensive lines, offensive line, Nick Chubb. You talked about Amari Cooper coming off a career year. You come off the high when you make the playoffs with Joe Flacco and four or five different quarterbacks. If you come into this season, you not only tell me that Amari Cooper is not on the team, Zadarius Smith looks like he's going to get shipped out.
And we'll talk trades in a sec. Don't worry. For people out there waiting for some trades, we'll talk in a sec.
Myles Garrett, before yesterday, he was hurt, banged up, and you would be 2-7. And you're on 3 or 4 quarterbacks again, and Deshaun Watson is done for the year, I would have told you it was crazy. It's one of the most disappointing, especially since 1999. I would say yes. Yeah.
Well, I just think, when you were bad in 0-16 and 1-15, like the expectations were you were going to be really bad. And the expectations were the Browns had a chance to not just make the playoffs, but compete with the Chiefs and the best teams in the AFC for a potential Super Bowl slot. And instead they're competing with literally the worst teams in the NFL for the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming draft. G. I titled this "Everyone's to Blame" because I truly believe everyone here is at fault. I'm going to just go down the list.
Okay.
Andrew Berry, I think, did a poor job this offseason evaluating the talent that was on the roster and addressing needs that could have been, I don't want to use the word addressed again, but could have been prioritized more than they were. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I think Mike Hall has a chance to be a really special player in this league. He had a much better game against Baltimore than he did against the Chargers, but that was a luxury pick in the second round, G. And you look across this roster, there are some serious holes that a second-round pick could have helped fill. Now, the offensive line has gotten old very quickly. You can't really tell that until they're in game situations, but we knew Jack Conklin wasn't going to be ready to start the season. Jed Wills took longer than anyone could have expected to return. DeJuan Jones was hurt throughout training camp. Jason Lloyd of The Athletic reported on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show he was up to 415 at one point this year. So maybe having some better tackles to help protect your quarterback may have been something you could have looked at a little more closely. The receiving room, yes, they went out and got Jerry Jeudy, and they thought they had Amari Cooper. But after the whole back and forth of, is Cooper going to get traded, the cryptic Instagram post, maybe that's not a position that you were as confident in moving forward. In the secondary, which has been their bread and butter identifying talent, did they truly believe in Greg Newsome and MJ Emerson have taken colossal steps back this season? And Juan Thornhill, who's back from injury, who had those 2 coverage busts. It was him and Denzel Ward. I'm not sure exactly who's more to blame. All I know is those 2 were not on the same page, and that's inexcusable for guys this late in their career with the accolades they both have. So Andrew Berry did, in my opinion, put together a roster with talent, but didn't maximize certain areas where they could have addressed, especially with the quarterback, the most important position, coming off shoulder surgery, G. And they told us his arm looked great. It never looked great to me when he was playing. It still looked like he was throwing with a bit of a hitch and never had the velocity. Kevin Stefanski has given up play calling. We've seen the ebbs and flows of what that looks like. They can't run the ball consistently. They went away from the play action game this week. Is that Dorsey? Is that Stefanski? We don't know anymore because they're collaborating on a game plan. Dorsey's the one calling plays. So that's a colossal fail. Jim Schwartz, as this defense has taken a massive step back from their alleged elite status last year. So the players, the coaches, the front office, I think everyone deserves part of this blame pie. And there's not one person that you could say he's the reason they're 2-7. It would be easy to say it's just Deshaun and Jameis for their quarterback play. But the defense gave up 2 uninterrupted touchdowns yesterday, G, and the offense stunk. But that's 14 points, right? The Browns only scored 10. That's 14 points right there. So that it's just been so disappointing because there's not one facet of this team you could look at and say, hey, they've done that very well this season. Instead, everything's been a D+ at best, C- at best, or below.
And the collaboration is the thing that if we look at it from a different standpoint too, the collaboration, right? We got guys that knew that you wanted to run this type of offense, right? Because we keep seeing it, even with Jameis Winston, they keep coming out with 5 wide and some of the spread type stuff. If you knew that as a general manager, wouldn't you have an imperative that you needed to be in the draft or in free agency finding speed, size, things that work with this offense? Instead of getting bigger and bigger, faster targets, we got smaller. I could see why now you wanted to go get Brandon Ayuk or you wanted to get some of those guys, because if you're watching practice and they're continuing to run this, why are you guys not on lockstep and doing what you need? Why are you picking Siaki Ika in the 3rd round? What are we doing with these nose tackles or linebacker? You should have been trying to turn over every stone to go get you another receiver if this is what you wanted to run. So I think there's a disconnect there. The play calling still baffles me. And this is, as we look forward and as we continue to move forward, as we start to look at the draft, we're going to have some very difficult conversations, because even if you don't, say, for instance, you're outside of the spectrum to get a top 10 quarterback, right? Or you're just in that area where you can get, say, Travis Hunter. Think about this. You're dealing with the analytics staff. Why would you as a Browns organization take Travis Hunter? And you guys have never found a way to get any of your playmakers open. If you draft Travis Hunter, Travis Hunter got to play 40 snaps. He got to see offensive time, special teams. You got to use him everywhere. Can you imagine sitting there drafting Travis Hunter and then just play him on defense and he's playing like nickel?
Well, I am curious because I've heard mixed reports, or not reports isn't the right word, mixed analysis from different draft guys on whether or not they think Travis Hunter can play both ways in the NFL, just from the physicality toll that it takes. But he's proven everyone wrong at every level thus far. People said he can't do it in college. Well, he did it. Well, he can't do it at Power 5 schools. He could do it at Jackson State, but not. He's doing it to a tremendous level, maybe Heisman caliber at Colorado. I would test it out. Who knows if he can or not in the pros, G, but I'm not betting against that kid.
Listen, this is what makes other people special. Like Jaden Daniels, they just put him go do your thing, dog. Yeah. Like
let your players be players.
Go do like Steph. People say Steph can't do that. it's Steph Curry. Now that we know and we understand, like it's LeBron. It's just one of those things. So for me, I look at it from a philosophical standpoint, and the problem that muddies this up as well is that when we eventually, as we start to talk on the Bleacher Report and these apps and on UCSS, because soon we talk about draft and what we're looking at and all off season, which is I will say kind of exciting a little bit because there is
it's not exciting in November. I'm pushing back on that, G. It's exciting at the end of the season in week 15, 16, but not in week 10, not in week 9.
Hey, if DTR is in there and he getting pushed around and we playing like we did, pretty soon people going to stop worried about these games and they're going to say, all right, well, let me get to this. Let's figure out can I see Shedeur Sanders? Give me Quinn Ewers. But the problem with this is, or the kid from Georgia, Beck, Carson Beck. The problem is, like, we have to imagine those guys in this offense. Yeah. And we don't even know what this offense is.
Yeah. No, it's fair. And we're going to do this later this week on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. If you're watching on Bleacher Report, you can find G, myself, and a bunch of other guys every Monday through Friday at 1 to 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on YouTube. We're going to do a Carson Beck versus Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward discussion this week, G. So it's coming. Like, we can't avoid it any longer. They're dead. Tomorrow is the trade deadline, though. In 24 hours and 44 minutes, the Browns will hopefully, for the sake of their future, have dealt some veteran players to teams that are in more of a contention situation to recoup some draft picks. G, let's go through some guys. I'm going to give you a name, and you tell me what you would take in return for that guy. Okay. Like, realistically speaking, if a team offered with this, what would you say yes? For people who don't know, G's going to ask for a much higher price than he probably is deserving, and I'm probably going to go too low for what it's deserving. So you could probably find the in-between. That is how G and I work. But let's start with the obvious one first here, G, and that's Zadarius Smith from the Lions. What do you think the Browns can get for Zadarius Smith?
I'm hoping for a 4. They traded a 5 to get him kind of with the contract thing. So if y'all can get a 4, and my pipe dream is this. Hopefully they are up against it. They've made it known to the entire league that they need a defensive end as Aiden Hutchinson went down. So what I'm trying to get is a 3. Get that 3 from them. If you got a 3 for Zadarius Smith, that means you done upgraded 2 slots from what you paid for him. You got your worth out of him. He's on a 2nd-year deal. Give me a 3, and it's a done deal for me.
Yeah, if they offer a 3 before he even finishes the sentence, you hang up the phone, send the paperwork in. I think realistically you're looking at a 5 or a 6, but if you can get a 3, in a heartbeat. Dalvin Tomlinson, G, can you get a 4th for Dalvin? A 5th? He's got a lot more money left on his deal than Zadarius does.
He does, which complicates things a little bit. But here, what helps you is he had one of his best games this last game before the deadline. He got some sacks. He got some pressure. He's been an okay player for the Browns. If you're a guy that wants to shore up the run, or you're a team that, maybe a little leaky up front, don't have the depth, and you want to make sure that you can stop the run and get a guy who has some ability to pass rush, if I get a 4 from him, I'll do it. 4th round pick for a nose tackle is, that's pretty good compensation. I'll take a 4 for Tomlinson.
I would honestly take anything for Tomlinson. And it's no disrespect to Dalvin. I just think when you look at how the Browns are going to restructure their defensive line, he's not part of their long-term situation. Yeah. And there are going to be a few guys the Browns have to part ways with, not necessarily via trade tomorrow, but over the next 2 years, that you're either going to cut them and just eat the cap hit to save some money, or trade them and get something back. So I'd take anything for Tomlinson back. Gee, I think you get a 4th rounder for Greg Newsome if the Browns wanted to get rid of their 5th-year former first-round quarterback. If you get a 4, I think there are a couple teams out there that would make that deal if the Browns are willing to listen. I don't think he's going to be in their long-term plans either, just based on the guys in the secondary.
If they would have did it a year earlier, I would have gave him a 3. I think you could have got a 3. Remember, we were talking about the Jerry Jeudy moves last year in his name. And you get a 4 for Greg Newsome, I'm all for it. The problem with Greg Newsome is he's going to be billed as a slot corner. He's not an outside type corner. He just does not have the ball skills. I think he doesn't have the recovery speed to be one of those guys, or the instincts. I think he's going to be, if you get a 4 for Greg Newsome, they're not going to sign him in free agency and extend his contract. He was a guy who's a former first-round pick. I think he could be a slot corner somewhere else in certain places. So I would take a 4. It might be a 5th. I'm not going to lie, depending on what the market is.
Does he have one more year on his deal? Is this the last year of his deal?
I always mix
right
him
now.
and Jed Wills up because I don't know if
no. So this is Jed Will's 5th year option. They picked up his 5th, so he's technically under contract for $13 million next year. So you know what? You actually might be able to still get a third for him because he has 1 year left on his deal.
There you go.
After this year, so I think his value might be a little higher. You're right. I always think him and Jed are on the same timeline. This
I don't know
Jed's
why.
last season, not Greg Newsome's last season in theory. Anyone else on defense you think could be a potential trade target? It's not even worth discussing Myles Garrett. I don't think any team is going to get plus some.
Linebackers, they don't have any. Here's the problem. I don't think they would move him, but we talked about it on UCSS. If there's somebody out there that is a Super Bowl caliber contender and they come to you and say, give me Denzel Ward. Now, if Denzel Ward was not concussioned and has so many concussions in the last, I would say, 3 years, I think this wouldn't even be on the table. I think he's an elite man-to-man guy. Some people that you can just throw out there and lock somebody up. And if you got 1 or 2 good corners right now, he could be the reason why you in the playoffs can win some games. So if you had Denzel Ward on the board, I don't think because of the concussions and because of his health, because you can't really count on him being there all year, I think that highest you would get for him is a 2nd-round pick. And that's pushing it.
Yeah, just that his contract, he has $12 million guaranteed next season. Then his guaranteed salary stuff is over. His actual money owed after that isn't very high. The Browns paid a ton of the money up front. But he has a $25 million cap hit in 25, a $31 million cap hit in 26, and a $27 million cap hit in 27. So it's going to take a team that has the ability to absorb that number to also make a deal. Let's go over to offense. Mike Florio mentioned David Njoku as a potential trade candidate. G, we talked about that on UCSS today. You said a 3. I think that might be in the right range for David Njoku if you're going to get rid of him. I'm not looking to trade David Njoku, but if a team comes calling, I'd certainly listen.
Yeah, I would too. Now, let me just preface this. David Njoku is a really good locker room guy, team leader, doesn't give you any issues. He's a willing blocker, a pretty good blocker. He doesn't, complain a lot. He's played with pain. I mean, he had the burn situation where he still came back and played. He's been very vocal in making sure that he comes out and says everything about Cleveland. He loves the city. So it would be a thing where I would need to be, if they gave me a third round
away.
Yeah, I got to be, because I can just keep him. And when you're doing a rebuild, you need those guys. You can't just rebuild with it. That was the most painful thing about the rebuild with the old Browns, the 1-31, is they were doing that with it completely done. There's no veterans in there. And when you got a bunch of rookies and you losing a lot, you can lose.
Different sport. But I go back to this all the time. The Sixers, when they went through their process rebuild, developed so many horrific habits that no matter who they bring in, and no matter how much they get removed from the timetable of the process rebuild, it is a loser organization. And Joel Embiid has developed loser habits over the course of years of his ownership and his front office telling him, we're literally trying to win 15 games so we could draft you another superstar. It's really hard to break those habits, and that's why I do think veteran guys like Njoku could be valuable if the Browns do go full rebuild.
Yeah.
But also, for the right price, you got to listen. He's not invaluable like some other guys are.
And because he plays tight end. I mean,
it's not exactly. Jameis Winston. We talked about maybe a 3rd-round pick after his game against Baltimore. I think 3 picks to follow up definitely drops it a little bit. You think a team, and I'm not sure who the team is. They just may not have a suitor out there who currently needs a quarterback. Could you get a 4th, a 5th for Jameis?
I'm the leader of the Kool-Aid Mafia. And after that performance, you back down to the 5ths. You could have struck where the iron was hot. If he would have played well this game, you could have maybe, stuck it to some team that was desperate. But trust me, where's the desperate team out there? Like, there's no, Joe Flacco, Anthony Richardson, they sat down or whatever the case may be. Jason Lloyd said something today. I think it was very interesting. And I think this is a good topic for another day is, are you willing to go look, if you keep a lot of these veterans, are you willing to go look at the retread market rather than the top flight college thing. Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, even Justin Fields could be available for a right price. Are you willing to start with those rather than go with the full-blown young guy, because that might not really work out for some veterans? But I think that's an interesting topic for another day as well.
It actually leads me to my final point here, G, and then we can wrap up on both. I'll be on record right now. I do not like any of the quarterbacks in this upcoming NFL draft class with a top 5 pick. Like, I just don't think they're that good.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward does some incredible things. He also plays as loose as I've ever seen a quarterback play with the football. And his box score looks awesome. He's like 3 inches away from being Jameis Winston, but a little faster.
His mixtape throws, when you watch him, the scary part for a lot of people, because we're close to it, is you're like, wow, he kind of reminds me of Deshaun Watson in the pocket. Like,
yeah,
the laissez-fairness of just, I'm moving around, you can't stop this throw. Now, trust me, his arm talent is crazy.
Yeah,
like some of the throws he throws, I'm like, dang, how'd you even see that? But is that something you're going to be able to replicate at this level?
Well, you see Caleb Williams, who had a crazy arm too and played similar, but I think even a little more in structure. Listen, I met Cam Ward when he was 18, and he won the Freshman of the Year in the FCS and Incarnate Word. Like, I've always been a fan of his. I just don't know if I trust him to be the face of an NFL franchise. Shedeur Sanders does a lot of really good things,
but he also holds the ball and takes a lot of sacks. We've seen that.
Yep.
We've seen that, right?
Carson Beck's not a first-round pick in my mind whatsoever.
No.
Kind of like the Nussmeier kid from LSU. We'll talk all the quarterbacks in a sec. But, G, I want to make one last point before we wrap up here, because a lot of people we saw on our Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, well, don't trade guys that don't trust the front office to make picks. That's the biggest loser mentality in the world. It is fair if you want to say Andrew Berry and the current front office regime haven't hit on picks. That is fair, and I will not argue with you whatsoever that they have missed a lot more than they've whiffed. They've whiffed a lot more than they've hit. But if you're scared to trade aging veterans because what are they going to do with the 4th-round pick? Guys, that's how you build your team. And when you could hit on a couple of those picks, you can't hit if you don't play. It's like winning the lottery. You cannot win the lottery if you don't have a lottery ticket, right, G? And the chances are you're probably not going to win the lottery if you buy 1 ticket. You're probably not going to win if you buy 2 tickets. But if you have 5 tickets, you have a little bit of a shot. And if the Browns can accumulate 3, 4, 5, 6 mid-round picks, and they won't do that just by tomorrow, but just in general, you got to have more opportunities and have more shots. It's like in basketball. You can't score 10 points if you don't shoot, right?
Got to.
And some guys only need 5 shots to score 10 points. Some guys need 10 shots to score 10 points, and some guys need 15. At the end of the day, if the goal is to get 10 points, you need the opportunity to shoot. And whether it's Berry or somebody else, if you're going through a rebuild, I'd much rather have those opportunities than nothing. And when I see people, whether it was our comment section, whether it was on Twitter, saying, I'm not trading guys because they're going to miss on the pick anyway, that is a loser mentality to the max. And I'll die on that hill, G.
I agree. The Browns are more like your volume shooter whose stats look tremendous, but she'd be like, dang, bro, you getting 27 shots? Like, you 8 for 27 and not efficient. That's how we are with our picks. But you have to evaluate and say to yourself, okay, what is our philosophy and what are we going to do? Because the cool thing about it is, I always say this, and this is a little bit of an analogy. At every 5 to 10 years, when you're growing up, when you're younger, you can always reinvent yourself. If you weren't really cool in middle school, you can get a bunch of clothes, work out a little bit, start playing basketball. All of a sudden, in high school, you're awesome. Maybe you were in a band. You were in a band in high school. Hey, look, you get in shape. You start going around, hang out with the right people, start throwing great parties in college. You're the man. Maybe you was partying too much. You buckle down, you get into a nice little firm, and you can rebuild yourself every 5 years. The Browns are rebuilding their identity. But the thing that they have to come up with is this. This is what we are. And then we draft based upon that, not just one position. Because we found out the hard way. Just because you get a quarterback and he wants to play a certain way does not mean that your offensive line, your receivers, your play callers line up with that. Everything has to line up so that you can maximize what you're doing. I think that's the major takeaway from this year. It has to be cohesive. It has to be a plan, and it has to be a plan everybody agrees with.
Yeah, and we've seen teams that have been historically bad at drafting get one draft pick right, and next thing you know, they've turned it around like that. The Washington Commanders are the perfect example. Gee, this was a lot more fun than doing it solo. We appreciate everyone for tuning in on the Bleacher Report app. For our YouTube audience, we appreciate you guys as well. You can catch us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Find us on YouTube. And for your Bleacher Report people out there, make sure you download the Bleacher Report app. It is a terrific app. And we'll see you guys on the post-game show on Sunday. For G. Bush, I'm Mikey McNuggets. See you tomorrow.
Peace.